Hello, and greetings to our Russ Lyon family from Jim Lyon, Todd Gillenwater, and myself. This week, the National Association of Realtors, NAR, announced its decision to enter into a settlement agreement for the lawsuit known as the Sitzer-Burnett case. It is our opinion, as well as numerous other real estate companies and industry professionals, that the NAR chose to protect their interest over that of its members, demonstrating a clear lack of knowledge and/or understanding of the industry they were created to guide and protect. In short, the NAR folded like a cheap suit. With that said, Russ Lyon Realty will move forward as the continued leader in luxury home sales in Arizona, dedicated to our craft and continued fair dealing with all parties in any real estate transaction. Since the settlement announcement, there has been an onslaught of articles and stories in the media by those who know absolutely nothing about our business. Regrettably, these views by the media are grossly mistaken claims. We should all be prepared to bring the truth to our real estate consumers. So let's review some of the more shocking and outlandish statements being made by the media. Let me share a more accurate perspective. Number one, the settlement forces real estate brokers to reduce their compensation. False. The settlement in no way establishes any standard or limitation on what realtors may charge, nor the services they elect to deliver. Realtor fees have always been fully negotiable, and there's never been any collective bargaining or collusion. Realtors may cooperate on transactions toward a common goal and are fiercely independent, as well as highly competitive with one another. At all price levels and all locations, one can find varying levels of realtor compensation, which usually coincides with the level of service and realtor competency, always chosen by the client. I would argue there's more variation in real estate pricing than in most other product or service industries. The media is also making comparisons to U.S. real estate fees versus that of some other countries. Yet in many of those countries, the real estate professional is an employee with benefits and often salaries with bonuses. The vast majority of real estate professionals in the U.S. are 100% performance paid through commissions only. Number two, the settlement will, for the first time, allow sellers to no longer pay compensation for an agent bringing the buyer. Of course, this is false. There has never been any obligation for a seller to pay buyer-agent compensation at any time. Yet it has been a historical practice that's worked exceedingly well since the advent of modern residential real estate. This settlement merely prohibits the reference of buyer compensation from the seller in the MLS system. The reality is, any listing can be displayed on the MLS, whether it offers agent compensation or not. All real estate companies are free to set their own parameters for accepting a listing agreement, which we do. Number three, the settlement will prohibit sellers from paying a commission to a buyer's agent. Obviously false. The practice of whether to pay a buyer's agent is totally a seller's discretion, and nothing changes in terms of options. Only the disclosure of such compensation from the seller is restricted from being listed in the MLS. A seller can always elect to offer compensation to differentiate their property in hopes of gaining an edge on other listings. Many of us would suggest that the most important outcome is a successful sale of the property on the seller's terms. Number four, the settlement will now relieve sellers of any financial burden of buyer-agent fees. Again, this is false. Although sellers can elect not to pay a buyer agent compensation, that doesn't mean that we'll avoid the economics altogether. Buyers may easily write into any offer or contingency requiring that the seller cover the costs, or may request other concessions such as closing cost assistance in the dollar amount they are paying their representative. Number five, this settlement ultimately reduces a total cost of transaction services as sellers will no longer pay buyer agent compensation. Absolutely false. Should sellers now choose to compensate only the listing agent, it merely means that buyers rather than sellers will now pay their own representation. If the buyer chooses not to, they may require the seller to pay as a contingency to the contract. Realtor services are not free, nor should they be. Just because two parties may now share the cost of services rather than one doesn't mean the total cost of the transaction has been lowered. Number six, The settlement will serve to meaningfully lower real estate prices and make homeownership affordable again. False. General values of real estate are determined by the fundamentals of supply and demand, not by realtors. Yes, the commission represents an expense of the transaction. Yet these fees not only represent real estate commissions, but include title fees, closing fees, mortgage-related expenses, property taxes, association fees, etc., etc. If real estate commissions were theoretically reduced by 1% as a result of this legal action, this will mean a $500,000 home will now only cost $495,000. Whoopee! As the doors to the American dream have been thrown wide open. The impact is marginal at best. Do you believe the seller now thinks their home is worth less and will happily give the difference to the buyer? The real reason homeownership is less affordable is that homes have risen in value dramatically in the last few years. Most people will expect to reap the gains afforded by this appreciation, as they should. Homeowners shouldn't have to apologize for wanting to maximize their return, and realtors shouldn't apologize for making a living in an industry where they receive not 1 cent unless the consumer succeeds, all while being on call 24/7. Number 7, the settlement is a fantastic win for buyers who may now be able to negotiate their fee for representation. This is highly questionable. For those who have purchased one of our homes over the years, it is more than likely you were quite happy to have the seller compensate your agent so you didn't have to. For buyers who had to scrape up enough money for the down payment and closing expenses, having the commission paid by the seller and incorporated into the price of the home allowed the buyer to finance that amount over time rather than coming up with thousands of additional dollars at closing. The reality is that most mortgages are ultimately sold to Fannie and Freddie, and both have no provisions for the commissions to be financed. In fact, the VA loan program expressly prohibits the borrower from paying any form of commission in a real estate transaction. So just how is a veteran who has honorably served his or her country now better off without representation? I think not. Number 8, the settlement will result in significant restitution for real estate consumers who were harmed over recent years in their transactions by realtors. Really? Obviously false. The settlement figure is huge, yet when one divides the amount by the number of potential qualifying consumers, it works out to be about $10 per person. The only people truly profiting are the class action attorneys who have submitted a request to the court for over $80 million in legal fees. Yes, such consumer champions they are. As a real estate professional with over 95 years of combined experience, Jim, Todd, and myself have worked with thousands of realtors who represent the public, and what is most likely their largest investment. While being the first to acknowledge those for whom the industry would be better off without, they are in the minority. What we have consistently witnessed is the incredibly hard work, countless situations where the agent has gone above and beyond to do things and pay for things he or she probably shouldn't have. They manage complex transactions, calm emotions, build relationships based on trust and care, help buyers realize their dream, sellers to maximize their returns, and help everyone turn the page to their next chapter. Realtors sometimes serve as housekeepers, caretakers, repairmen, dog walkers, and countless other roles with their sellers and buyers, always their primary concern. Every day I'm proud to work with these people, and the public is better off because of them. We would all like to pay less for the things we do and purchase. However, I don't see the Department of Justice going after attorneys, doctors, car dealerships, and countless other professions for whom we may wish charged less. The brokerage community has always adapted when necessary to best represent buyers and sellers in the sale of real estate whenever there is a shift in the environment. And no doubt we'll do the same. At Russ, Lyon, Sotheby's International Realty, we are proud to present the very best brand in the industry with the most talented and competent sales professionals anywhere. Yet, when industry we love is singled out and the justification is for totally false reasons with outcomes portrayed as something which they are not, we will not be quiet. While we work to ensure we are prepared for anything coming over the hill, we will speak out whenever possible to correct those who demonize our business and misrepresent the nature of what we do. I invite you to join us in protecting our business and our commitment to providing the very best real estate services available to our buyers and sellers. We are truly Russ, Lyon, Sotheby's International Realty. Thank you for being our business partners.